Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dark Winds Season 2, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, picking up where the last episode left off, I wasn't expecting Leaphorn having to drag Chi all that way. Granted, who knows how long he had to drag him, but I would assume they were kind of decently far from, the actual highway. Luckily, a truck went by. A truck that was going to hit Joe, because it wasn't able to slow down in time, but luckily that situation didn't get worse than what it could have been, so... Jumping ahead quite a bit, it's interesting to see, and I understand why Joe didn't, but it's fascinating and interesting that he didn't tell Emma about Joe Jr.'s buckle. First and foremost, you're not going to tell her about the fact is, hey, we got shot at today, and she got shot at. She already feels all the bad energy around them. Once again, that's why she wanted someone there to kind of basically cleanse him and they're coming at 5. It's no, reschedule him for Monday. It'll be fine. It's Joe, because I guess for him it's it's not going to do anything. I don't know if it's necessarily a thing of it won't cleanse anything. I think he believes in kind of that more mystical side of things, but I think for him it's everything that his family's been through, I don't think that's going to help. And I think maybe on some level Emma's still kind of thinking about, all that's kind of unresolved when it comes to Joe Jr.'s death, that maybe some of that, I guess maybe that's why Joe's thinking, maybe it's we had something like that before Joe Jr. died and it didn't help him. So maybe that's why he doesn't believe in that. Or maybe there's some part of him, it's that grief process of, if we kind of get rid of any energy, maybe for him, it's that past 3 years, it's that thing of, if you let go of your anger and let go of your grief, you feel what else will I have? Because for maybe Joe holding on to that grief or that dark energy around them, that his wife is we need to kind of cleanse that because there's just been so much bad that's come our way. Maybe on some level Joe is scared that if they get rid of that, then any semblance of kind of holding on to his son kind of goes with it. I might be reading way too much into that, but it's why he keeps putting that off, either because he just believes it's nonsense, but it feels like he's open on to the more mystical side of things, especially, when it comes to the Navajo beliefs on the more mystical side of things. It seems like he's a lot more open to it, so why is he kind of putting this off over and over again? He's kind of telling Emma, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. We don't really need some, so that's interesting. But going back to it, I understand why he didn't tell her, because he doesn't know what it means, and I think for the first time, Emma's kind of in a better place now, since losing Joe Jr., and he doesn't want to open that wound up again, because it isn't just going to be a small, we're making a small incision to open this wound back up. It's no, it's going to be a massive wound, and he's probably scared of what it's going to do. I think having Sally and the baby around has kind of alleviated some of that, but it's not it's completely going away. It's still there, and he just doesn't want to bring any more hurt to her, especially when he doesn't know what it means. I think it's also because Joe feels the need to protect her from the pain. He takes on all of it on his own, which the moment Emma finds out, it's why didn't you tell me about this? Don't shoulder everything on your own, but Joe kind of does, especially with this pain, because it's maybe that's also the thing of, maybe, once again, speculation on our part, maybe by holding on to that badge and just keeping it for himself, that pain, like I was saying before, maybe it's applicable with the buckle, that by holding on to that pain alone, it kind of gets to be his and no one else's. He doesn't have to share in that pain, and it kind of keeps his son close to him. It's more so to protect his wife, but I wonder on some psychological level, is that kind of part of the reasoning? It's mainly to protect Emma, but I wonder if there's some small part to that. I think it's interesting too that really quickly, when Sally, her baby, was crying, and she's I'm so sorry, please don't kick us out of here, I don't know what else to do, he's crying, and Joe was able to calm the baby down. It's understandable why she's freaking out, because Joe was not too receptive of her staying here the last season. That was mainly Emma's decision to do that. And I'm sure for Joe, he kind of interpreted almost you're trying to fill the void of our son being gone, because that house has just been them for so long, and all they've had is just that sad silence kind of reverberate through their house with Joe Jr.'s absence. And so basically it turns out her baby's like teething, like his teeth are coming in and he's in pain and doesn't know what to do about it, can't do anything about it. So he suggested a way to kind of alleviate that. And he says like, yeah, it's what me and Emma did for our son. And later on, Emma's like telling the story of how, what was it, the was it father of the sky and Mother Earth, how they were connected by a lightning bolt. And for her, it is this story that we kind of have to pass on to the children when they're young, because it's about keeping their legacy, their lineage, and their stories alive. Because it's like, if we don't pass it to the next generation, they die with us. So, and she was taking care of the baby, and like I said, for her, it's just like she gets to like play the role of a mother again. You know, especially, sadly, she will never be a grandmother. And I think for her, this is the closest she's getting to it. Because, you know, so Joe never had any kids. So Joe Jr. never had any kids. So she gets to play the role of kind of mom, but also a grandmother. And I'm curious to see, like, there's that look on Sally's face that makes me wonder, is she going to try and leave her baby with them? Because it's like, right, they've already done it before, they'll do a better job. Like, maybe there's a little bit of a postpartum depression situation going on, and I don't know, it just looks in Sally's eye make me almost feel like she might try and do that, because she might feel like, I can't do anything for my baby, I can't figure this out, I don't know what I'm doing. Luckily she has Joe and Emma there, but I don't know if that's going to scare her away and make her decide to leave the baby with them. We'll have to wait and see. Another element to this I could be easily reading way too much into. Now, what's interesting is that Joe eventually goes and meets with BJ and asks him about the belt buckle. I mean, yeah, the buckle, but it's like, yeah, my son had it on him. It's like, it might have been in your box. BJ's like, I have no idea why it would be in my box. It's like, wait, you didn't find it actually in the box. You might have found it in a general area, but why? Because why would I have something of like? And it's like, that is the big question, because the place was, and as Joe kind of puts it, most likely the white dude, after he got the box, he ended up trying to burn all the stuff in there for whatever reason we don't know. Because later on, because all of this relates to Drumco in some shape or form, because some of the forms that were kind of burnt up later on, they end up finding out that they were like, because we know BJ ended up saying there's a Silver Star medal, I think a birth certificate, and a bolo tie, and a land deed, I believe, property deed or something like that, were like for the items that are supposed to be in the box. So, because the box is supposed to be something like witchy, based around like the people of darkness. And once again, Thomas said, hey, BJ is part of the people of darkness. So what does that mean? He says like, oh, I had nothing to do with that belt buckle, but it's like, he did. But it's like, there's no way you didn't take notice of it. I was about to say, in 3 years, you never took notice of the fact that is Joe Jr.'s, because there's no way you didn't, because it literally has his name on it. So, but why would you keep it? Like, it has to be a thing of, there has to be like some kind of energy to that is necessary for like magic or something. Like, I mean, magic kind of, I mean, depending on what you like, what mythology or whatever you pull it from, there's usually kind of pain associated. Like, the more probably like emotions that are tied to an object, the more powerful it is. So maybe it kind of acts as a little bit of like a totem of magic. And because of all the pain associated with it, not only just the pain burnt into it from Joe Jr.'s death, but also the pain from his family grieving him, that maybe it's almost a thing of everyone that, because I don't think Joe Jr. was the only one that died. Was he? I actually don't remember how many people died from the Drumco explosion, but part of me was wondering, like, what if all those deaths and spirits were kind of bound to a single object, and that ended up being this belt buckle, making it kind of like this powerful kind of mystical item. Like I said, kind of a bit of a totem. I'm saying it again and again, pure speculation, and I could be 100% wrong. But it definitely, you could tell, like, he's hiding something. And when Joe was leaving, he noticed the, like, tracks in the carpet or, like, the rug, because it was from Rosemary, Miss Vines. She was nearby listening, and then quickly removed herself from the moment Joe was done talking to her husband. Because he's saying like, oh, I had nothing to do with the, I didn't even know about the robbery until Rosemary told me. So I'm like, definitely, because especially that look in his face like, oh boy, like he was the moment Joe left the room. So he's definitely hiding something. And Joe ends up talking to his dad about all this because his dad has experience with the people of darkness. I guess his dad used to be a cop, and it makes sense that that kind of runs in the family. There was this really interesting conversation that Joe had with his dad, like outside of just that, because it's like, all right, the people of darkness, it's like, right, he has to go see Margaret, and it's like, right, the people of darkness aren't what they used to be. That it's like, Dylan said that basically if we follow, because she was talking about Dylan Charlie, she never really expressly said whether or not he actually was the founder of the people of darkness or not. It kind of implied like he was, that it's, if we follow the white people's rules, it will kind of be our undoing. That basically that our own people are using the white man's laws against other people. And it kind of goes into the whole conversation of the people of darkness were one thing, but maybe after Dylan's death all those years ago, now like a group of white people kind of utilize it. Because later on, when Bernadette and Joe were looking through stuff, and he's like, oh, does this look Navajo to you? She's like, this looks like someone trying to be Navajo. So I think it kind of coincides with like white people who are ignorant and kind of using stuff that they shouldn't have. Because I forgot, I believe it was Joe's dad that was saying that they were utilizing it in ways that kind of goes against it. It's like, oh, specifically the people of darkness. I think even when Dylan and them were associated with it, he felt like it was kind of sacrilegious against their way. It's like the way the people of darkness rode, they did their thing in secret, and everything that they represented was kind of like blasphemous to what we believe. It kind of like Navajo beliefs and traditions, it went kind of against that. It's more like you kind of invited something into you for power, to kind of make whatever you want it to happen. So, but getting back to what I was bringing up earlier, the conversation Joe had with his dad wanted him to be so much more. It's like, right, you could have gone, whenever you got away from that school, I dragged you back, which Joe had touched on that. I don't remember if he talked about, I vaguely feel like I remember him talking about his dad dragging him back to those schools, but maybe I'm misremembering. Because Joe did talk about the fact that he was sent to one of those schools, the schools that indigenous children were forced to go back in the day, to kind of force them to assimilate and be less indigenous people and more kind of assimilating to be more like white people, to kind of lose their identity. It was kind of that was kind of what those schools were as well. And because his dad sent him there to be like, right, you were supposed to kind of go off. You could have been whatever you wanted to be. You came back here. You followed in my footsteps. You let that woman, referencing Emma that way, and it's like, right, you're talking about my wife. You're talking about the mother of your grandchild. Like, why would you talk about Emma in that way? Like, so I guess that's also another reason why Joe doesn't hang around his dad. For personal reasons, like, right, the school situation kind of like helping force him to go there. They was already kind of forced to go. Plus, it's like his dad kind of has disdain for him being back here. It's like, I wanted you to, I think for him, it's this thought that you could have gone out there and made a name for yourself. You could have done so much more with your life, but instead you came back here to the res. Like, kind of like there is no future beyond this. Like, if you're stuck here, you're stuck here. There is no, I guess he's looking at it almost like one of those things of, it's been this thing of generation upon generation have been stuck here. You have an opportunity. That's probably why he was like, go to these schools, because you'll become a part of the white man's society and you'll be able to kind of go out there and build your own life and build a name for yourself. But it's like, but why did you have to come back here? Because for Joe, it's his home. And I think for him, it's like, this is the world I know. I'm not going to be forced to fit into a world that doesn't accept me for me. That I basically have to be stripped away and lose everything that is part of me, part of my culture, just to assimilate, Because, yeah, I might have had a better life or whatever that could mean. Whatever I could have been outside of the reservation doesn't matter, if I had to lose so much of myself in the process. I mean, I guess even coming back and holding on even more so to those traditions, holding even more to his culture, is his way of kind of rebelling against what the school was trying to strip him of. Because his dad definitely looks at everything I did was for the betterment. You might not have liked it, but I had the best of intentions. Doesn't make it good that you did that, but it is still your intentions were at least good. Like you wanted to do right by him. You wanted him to have a better life, didn't you? So there's just a lot of it just definitely sets up that there's some complications between Joe and his dad. I guess that's why he also doesn't come home that often, because his mom was like, oh my god, it feels like it's been forever. And it's like, probably avoids coming home just so he doesn't end up be around his dad. Does seem like his dad might be a drunk, but it might, because it's like, right, it seems like it's the middle of the day, got a beer in your hand, passed out in a chair, and it's like, oh, like, Joe, I guess to get him kind of talking more, is like, yeah, let me put a fresh beer in your hand, so. Joe sent Bernadette to talk to Chi about trying to get in a description of the white guy that shot at them, which obviously Bernadette had her reservations about it. And Joe already kind of knows that, but it's kind of like, right, things are too important. I don't know if he 100% did that on purpose, but it's probably like no, you're one of my trusted people. I need you to do this and get Chi's info about this guy. He's probably not even thinking about how complicated things are, despite him and Chi having a conversation about it at last episode about how complicated it was. Things are between them. She even went through the trouble of getting him a medicine bag just so that he could have some on him, to kind of help him get better. And it's like, right, did you have it on you? And it's like, well, no. And she's like, see, if you did, you wouldn't be here right now. He's like, yeah, but if I wasn't here right now, you wouldn't be here right now. And she kind of didn't have anything to say beyond that, because he wanted to apologize between how everything played out in last season. So I wonder, is that probably part of the reason why Bernadette's also doing what she's doing? Because I was so curious. I was like, okay, this is about border protection. And I was like, what is that all about? And she put the letter in her drawer. I was like, oh, I guess maybe that's something we'll deal with later on in the season. Wasn't expecting it to come back up literally later in the episode. She's trying to get a job at Border Patrol, which Joe's kind of like, which is so interesting because his dad made a whole point about like, wow, you're staying here, or Joe is trying to do everything he can to get Bernadette to stay here too. I guess it's like, right, the res needs a lot of good people, and you're very good at what your job, and you do very good at what you do. But for Bernadette, it's like, I want more out of my life. The fact is, if I go to Border Patrol, like, there's not many women. Specifically, they're in a situation where they have to, I guess, like kind of a diversity situation. They have to be hiring at least some Navajo women, and she plans on taking that position because she'll be able to, for her, it's like, if I stay here, I'm going to be in this ranking position for so long. It's like, yes, I'll eventually be able to replace Joe as lieutenant, but it's still like, I want more for my life. I want more for myself, I want to kind of reach beyond, because I think for her, I think there's just too much associated with being home. She wants to kind of be able to go out and spread her wings. I think that's just the interesting parallel of like, Joe's trying to keep you from doing that, even though that's what his dad pushed him to try and do. So, and I think he kind of sees like, right, I don't want to stifle you, but I also don't want to let you go, because I guess it might also be the thing of, do you really think, how many women do you think are going to really have that position where you are going? Like, you'll probably kind of be the only one. And I think for Joe, it's like, you want to kind of go out there in the world, but that world, maybe his experiences when he was younger really scarred him from kind of like going outside of the res, like, unless he absolutely has to, like, in the sense of not, who can go outside the res, but not like living a life outside of, like, having to adhere to other people's rules, where it's like, this is our way of living here and no one gets to really interfere with that. Like, there is a little bit of, and I think that's probably like the contrast between the two of them. Bernadette's tired of everything being the same old, same old. Obviously, like, these murders and circumstances break the mold of the same old, same old. But there's comfortability in that when, like, Joe and Emma have gone through what they've gone through. And I think maybe Joe holds on to it so much to try and keep some semblance of things not changing, because they had such a drastic change, and maybe they want to, maybe both of them, Joe in particular, wants to hold on to the life that they had, with their son, even without him there. But it's like they want to try and keep things as normal as possible. And for Bernadette, it's just like I can't be here with all that. And once again, I don't know if the season 1 finale has anything to do with those decisions or not. But Joe is kind of like, okay, I'll sign off on it, if or like at least find somebody who can write you as a reference, like write a letter of recommendation. They also ended up finding Thomas's dead body, which was around some more. They found BJ's box, but it was empty, and obviously some of that more Drumco like paperwork was burned, and Thomas dead. So maybe either Home Dude got to Thomas first, and Thomas led him to the box, and he ended up killing Thomas afterwards. Or maybe Thomas got away and then he eventually tracked Thomas down. Either way, he killed Thomas, which is sad. Which is so heartbreaking considering now Benny's all alone. Well, his grandfather died and now his dad's dead. We don't know if he has any other family. There wasn't really a conversation about a mom or a grandma, so he might be the only one kind of left, so it's like, where does he go after this? Who knows? There was that interesting line I love that's kind of funny, but also it's kind of a funny line because they kind of chuckle about it, but it's also kind of a dark line from Joe when he was talking to Benny about, like they met some of the astronauts who were training here, and yeah, before they went off to the moon, some of the Navajo people said a line in like... was it Dene? Is the language? I believe. I'm sorry if I'm wrong in that capacity, but it was like kept saying it over and over and over again, and basically the line was, "Don't trust them. They're here to steal your land." And they both kind of laugh about it. But I was like, that's funny, but also it's funny because it's super dark. That it's like, yeah, when they go to the moon and there's anyone else there, it's like, oh yeah, hello, you alien species. Yeah, we're here to steal your land. It's like, gotta let them know over and over again that maybe, or maybe it's like, I don't know. Just that was such an interesting line. It's like I said, there's a dark, very very dark humor to that line. But what's also interesting, too, is that Benny says that he saw the astronaut, or at least someone that looked like him, that being the white guy, the assassin. And it's like, yeah, I saw him a week ago, and my grandfather, Emerson, was like, yo, stay away from him. He's a bad guy because he blew up the well. And it's like, what well? And in that moment, it hit Joe. Because they never found out what happened to the Drumco explode, like why it happened. Wasn't just an accident. It happened on purpose. So the fact is Joe focuses on like just Joe Jr. So that, once again, I don't remember how many people died. Maybe there was other people, but the way Joe was almost acting, I mean, he has a vested interest in it because his son potentially was murdered. Not on purpose, but the timing is interesting because the explosion happened and then eventually BJ ended up buying that whole situation. So... because he kept being like, because the explosion had killed your son. He's like, yeah, that happened before I bought the land. But it's like, the fact is you bought the land afterwards. It's like, arguably could be like, oh, you were buying on it cheap. But maybe you hired this dude to set off an explosion because it does seem like explosives are his thing. The way he killed Emerson. Tried to kill, I guess it was supposed to kill Benny because he didn't want, I guess it's like, I'm going to wipe out this entire bloodline because I don't know what this kid knows. So to cover my tracks, put a bomb inside of a doll. Luckily, Joe and Bernadette got there before he had opened it, and before he could tug on like the explosive, Joe got it, called in his dad, and his dad's like handling it, and it's like, oh, I need you to hand me like pliers. No, the needle nose one. You didn't tell me the needle nose one. He's like, I'm telling you now. He's like, cool, you're gonna have to grab that and pull it, that metal piece and pull it out. Why do I have to grab it? Because my hands shake. He's like, all right, careful now, do it slowly. I'm doing it slowly. I'm like, I love that moment. And it's like, oh, cool. Bomb's taken care of. I love that it's like you had to bring in your dad as the diffuser. I'm like, I wonder, like, is he literally the only person in town that has, like, any diffusal training or anything like that? That's scary. But it's like, what should I do? He's like, a good cop would bring it up as evidence. You bring it in as evidence. You do whatever you want with it. Come on, I'll give you a drive back to the station. It's like, that is such an interesting relationship those two have. I love this little bit where Steve is with all these other people and he's like, oh, they're watching the moon situation, and he ends up messing, cause I guess so much stuff is plugged into the outlet, the entire place browns out, like blacks out because all the power went. So they all come bustling into the station at the end of the episode because it's like, yeah, there's a TV at the jailhouse, we'll watch it there. It's like Steve screwed the pooch on that whole situation. But we also have the assassin finding Chi, because once again, trying to kill everyone he can. I mean, you don't, because that means you'll also want, like, at least not like it makes it any better, like in the sense of you've got a lot of cleanup to deal with, because yeah, you wiped out most of that family, but for one, Benny's still alive, so there's that. Two, you're going after Chi. Granted, he's not a cop, he's a private investigator, but he's associated with cops who look into it. Plus, one of the people you were shooting at was Joe, so are you going to try and kill Joe too? Which I think is a strong possibility considering the like cold opening to episode 1. Like we're like the God, in media res or res media, I always forget the phrase of like where you kind of start at the middle or end and then rewind to the beginning situation. So he was trying to kill Joe and Bernadette, so you're willing to go that far, but it's like, yeah, it feels like that's going to draw too much attention, but I guess it's like, right, they might have your description, but they don't know who you are. I mean, hell, he even put on a wig, or either, I doubt he dyed his hair, I'm sure he probably just like put on a wig as he's going to go and kill Chi. So many questions about these people of darkness. Once again, it doesn't, like, what this is all about. Like, it has to all, because it all connects the assassin, BJ, and, like, this people of darkness. It all connects to Drumco, and for what purpose, it's unclear. Like, maybe that was kind of like a sacrificial thing of, once again, it seems like it, like, maybe it's a thing of they used kind of like the teachings of like the kind of like the magic of the people of darkness, like BJ and because Dylan died a year before the explosion. So now it also begs the question, maybe he didn't die in a car accident, maybe, well, he did, but maybe it wasn't an accident. So maybe he was murdered by the assassin to cover up the fact that he knew about their plans for Drumco, and boom, it exploded. And so, like, this has been a long thing that they've planned out and prepared so that BJ can swoop in and, like, buy up all that land and that property and the, all of that. So maybe kind of going back to it, maybe you needed a specific item from the incident to kind of keep it going. It's almost like a luck situation of like, right, as long as you keep it, it keeps everything prosperous for him. Maybe that's the justification for the box and everything. But now all the magic's kind of gone now that everything inside the box is destroyed. Because once again, something in there, Thomas stole something for his dad because he thought it would help his dad by stealing it. I mean, once again, we won't really know because the three people who probably would know the most, Emerson, Dylan, and now Thomas, are all dead. So those are kind of my thoughts about all of this. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good